Welcome to the Realizations Podcast. I'm Andrea Gordon, your host, and I'm excited to explore the world of real estate with you. In a world where perceptions often overshadow reality, Realizations seeks to redefine what it means to be a realtor. Join me as we peel back the layers of the industry, uncovering inspiring stories and celebrating the good in real estate. Whether you're a homeowner, a fellow realtor, or simply curious, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Realizations, where perceptions meet reality. Let's dive right in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Realizations. I'm Andrea Gordon, your host, and today I'm having the wonderful opportunity to talk to Tracy Butcher, who is based out of, what is it? It's Goodrich, Michigan. And, I thought that it would be really interesting to have Tracy on the show because she represents another portion of real estate for us. As you all know, the whole purpose of Realizations is to expose the American public to every aspect of doing real estate and what real estate means to our economy, to our communities, to our lives, really. Cities would not run without transfer taxes. When people own a property, it makes them invested in their community. Realtors are at part of everybody's lives in terms of sales of houses. But more than that, when people are selling or buying real estate, they are at sort of transition moments in their lives. Usually they have gotten married or had a kid or gotten divorced or gotten a big windfall of some kind through an inheritance, or they've ended up changing jobs. I mean, it's always at very, very key moments in people's lives that realtors enter them, unless they're functioning purely on an investment level. And that's also a key moment in many people's lives, as you've seen from some of the previous podcasts that we've done. And Tracy is an interesting person for me because Tracy is a realtor who started in the business 4 years ago. And I'm going to talk to her a little bit about that. And she also helps other agents. So I want to talk to her a little bit about that. And she also is very, very invested in her volunteerism. And I want to talk to her a lot about that. So Tracy, welcome. Thanks for coming on this show.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course. And, I wanted to ask you about how you got into real estate. What caused you to come in?
Well, so that's kind of a long story, but I'll try to make it as short as possible so it fits in our time frame today.
Okay.
In 2007, my husband and I, along with two other partners, started a plumbing and heating company. And I was teaching at the time. I have a master's degree in education. And I was like the silent partner. And when I decided that role I was in as a teacher was no longer suiting me, I left that position to go to a different teaching position and then found out that my company needed me to help manage it. So instead of me being a silent partner, I became an active partner. And that was not really my plan for life, to run a plumbing and heating company. I'm not a plumber. When people ask me how to fix things, I just go, I don't know. But my original college was in business management and accounting. So I was able to put those skills to use in the business. But I still needed my thing. I still needed my own drive, my own purpose, my own motivation. So in about 2017, 18, I was like, maybe I'll get a real estate license that'll fit my schedule. I can do what I need to do, right? And then I started talking to agents and brokers, and I got a lot of negativity and a lot of, on Saturday, you have to come answer the phone. That wasn't going to work for me with my schedule. So I kind of put it off for a little while. And then I found a brokerage that didn't require all of that. And then I got my license and became an agent. And then recently, just last month, I actually got my broker's license as well.
Oh, excellent.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a different method to get here.
It's funny, if you scratch a realtor, you usually find someone who has gone through a whole series of events. I just had someone on the show from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, who had owned a porta potty company.
Oh.
And or I have, kinesiologists and doctors and lawyers and realtors. You come to real estate, nobody wakes up, or maybe they do now, but usually when people are 4 years old, they're not going, I want to be a realtor. They're going,
Right.
I want to be a fireman or a farmer or whatever.
Exactly.
And life takes you to real estate because it's an amalgamation of so many skill sets that are so important. And with your educational background and your background in management and all of that, I have no doubt that you're amazing at what you do. So when you came into real estate, I mean, let's just do the math here. You came into real estate in the pandemic.
Yes.
Well, what's that
Sort
like?
of at the end of it, but yes. It was
Hmm.
interesting because as I was learning from fellow agents, I kept hearing a lot about what it was like before and what it's like now. And I was like, let's focus on the now because what was before is not going to help me today grow, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very interesting to watch it be kind of to come into it when it was kind of like exploding and crazy with all of the like multiple offers and skyrocketing prices and things like that. Honestly, it's been kind of nice that it's kind of normalized at this point.
Interesting. Interesting. I prefer the other, but that's just me.
Well, it was exciting, but when you're
Yeah,
new, it's a little bit overwhelming.
I would guess so.
Probably now I'd say bring it.
Yeah. Let's hope that the universe does bring it to us because it's been a little bit of a challenge for the last couple of years. So in the pandemic here in California, at different points, they gave us different regulations and guidelines every single time. So, for example, I was in a situation where I had a very popular house that was on the market, and I literally had to sit in my car with gloves and Lysol and Clorox, and every single time somebody went into the property, I had to go in and completely wipe down every surface. So I
Hmm.
was like the janitor for like months there.
Right.
um,
So I was lucky that I got my license actually as those things had all lifted.
Good.
However, because I run a plumbing and heating company, we had to deal with that like to the
Yeah.
extreme. We had clients that would make us wear Tyvek suits to go into their crawl space and mask
Right.
and because they were worried about, getting sick, which is understandable, especially since
Yeah.
many of them were elderly. But yes, I dealt with that from a little bit different perspective than real estate, but definitely felt the extreme part of that as well.
Yeah. Well, very, very, very cool. I mean, people had no idea what we were all going through during that time period. It was
Right.
really, really challenging. And it was interesting for me. I was actually literally just starting to represent the house of a doctor who was head of infectious diseases at a major hospital. And
Oh,
he
wow.
told me everything about it probably about 3 weeks before other people started realizing how bad it was.
Yeah.
And he was like, we're not going to be able to market the house. I was like, oh no, we're going to be able to market, no problem.
That changed
Yeah,
real
and
quick, didn't it?
yeah, so it was. I mean, we were all frightened for our lives, and I think everybody has been irreparably and intrinsically changed by what happened during the pandemic. I think it made everybody think a lot about life and what matters, and whether you are, whatever your political persuasion. I think it brought everybody to a moment in time where they thought about what was really important and what wasn't. And
Yes.
I know that for myself, I've sort of let all the stuff that isn't important drop away. um, and so when you are in the real estate business right now, you're part-time. You're not doing this full-time. Is that
That is
correct?
correct. Yes.
So
Yeah.
you're one of the few people I'm having on the show who is part-time. How do you manage that? Because as far as I can tell, it's like a double full-time job.
Yeah. Well, luckily, the type of work that real estate requires fits into a day in the same manner through like intertwined through the work of managing our other company. So I'm like the main manager of the other company. So I put out the fires. So, they're just coming to me like, this is a problem, fix it. So it's easy to intertwine the two quite nicely. They tend
Mhm.
to mesh quite well. There are occasions when, they butt heads instead, but for
Right,
the most part, they mesh into my schedule fairly well. The
right.
interesting thing is that that's also not all that I do. I am the treasurer and acting secretary of our Chamber of Commerce. I deliver Meals on Wheels one day a week. I'm part of the Junior League. I was recently elected to local office, which I will take office in November for. So I
What
really
local office? What?
trustee for Atlas Township. So
Wow.
Yeah. So I won the
You're a glutton for
primary.
punishment, aren't you?
You know, I like to be involved in my community.
Yeah.
Part of why I wanted my own thing was also so that I could have more financial means to be part of the community in a generous way. So
Hmm.
last year, I think 65% of what I earned in real estate went back into the community. So, that's not the same as other agents, whether they're
No,
full
well, you're in a
time.
unique position. You're in a unique position because
Yes,
it's not your main source of income. And you
correct.
also help other agents. Can you explain a little bit about that to me too?
So my background in education leads me to always wanting to learn more and know more and understand how the workings of everything is. So whether it's our CRM or whether it is like marketing or it is keeping in contact with clients, I'm always looking for the best methods and then helping other agents implement them, as well as being organized and scheduled and on task, because having taught middle school, that was something that I had to be good at for myself and my students. So sharing those skills with other agents so that they can grow their full-time businesses is really like a huge passion for me.
That's beautiful. We're going to take a little break because my dog is just about to bark.
Okay. Sounds good.
I think my husband is bringing me a cup of coffee, and my dog barks at him when he comes in the room. There he goes. See, I told you.
Yep.
Thanks, honey. Oh, so he'll stop now. Okay.
I love
Three,
that.
3, 2, 1. Well, that is a really beautiful thing that you are passionate about giving back, and that you are also, working through essentially coaching other agents, it sounds like. Would you call it coaching what you do?
Yeah. So I was actually a coach through Success when they had their coaching program. I went through their training as well. However, I found that my educational background is probably more useful than a lot of the coaching programs just because it's more geared towards actual teaching.
Hmm.
Coaching is more, accountability and such.
Right.
So in a way, I do both, I think.
That's
Success
great.
ended their coaching program, so I'm no longer technically a coach with them, but I
Hmm.
still maintain that training and skills that they provided through that program as well.
It's interesting to me. Today I was looking through Facebook, as I do usually with my first cup of coffee. This is my second one. And there was an ad for becoming a life coach in there.
Uh-huh.
And it really scares me when I see things like that, because just like with what we do as realtors, there is a huge skill set that is required to actually work with someone and move them forward in their life. I think that that should be done by trained professionals. I mean, the advertisement had, dream therapy, all these things. And I'm
Yes.
thinking, you do not have a psychology degree. What are you doing? You can take people down a very strange path if you don't know what you're doing. And the same thing is true in real estate. It is a very complicated process to getting a house sold or on the market or going through all of that. And I know that you, in part, have had a lot of work with estate sales, probate sales, things people don't know a lot about. Can you explain a little bit about that to us?
Well, I sort of got thrown into that when potential clients were reaching out to me and saying, "Can you help with this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'm all for a challenge." My very first experience with probate, the seller of the house was not the owner; it was the family member. Was told, because they had conservatorship and guardianship, that their documents made it so they could sell the property to help pay for the care of the homeowner themselves, who was in full-time assisted living. And the documentation was big and lawyer filled, and I didn't really understand a lot of it. So, we sent it straight off to title. Well, we were able to get the house under contract super fast, like 3 days, full price offer type of situation. And um, the title company came back with our offer sent in and accepted, they said one of the title companies caught that there was one sentence in there that said it had to go through probate.
Oh my
Um,
Lord.
Yes. So it went from we're going to close in 10 days to we're going to close when the court lets us.
Right.
And the buyer wanted the house so bad that they were
They hung
patient
in
through
there.
the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
And it took 92 days to close.
Yep. That's pretty
Um,
typical.
so so my first experience was a big learning curve because of
Yeah.
that, it
Yeah.
being last minute. Having been through that now, I think it'll be a lot easier to find those issues ahead of time.
Oh,
Also,
yeah.
because that was like conservatorship and guardianship versus, the passing of a family member. I also think that's a little bit different too. Like I had to help hunt down the homeowner's child who lives out of state that nobody's been in contact with for 10 years to get them to sign off as well because they're next of kin. So it was quite
Wow.
a learning experience.
Wow. Yeah. No, the stuff that can go on in real estate is so mind-boggling. I very recently had a similar sort of an experience where I met with an elderly gentleman and his son. He wanted to sell the house. He was going to be moving back to the East Coast with his son. And he just sat there and said, I'm no good anymore. My son's the only one who can take care of me. I'm getting a power of attorney. My son's going to take care of all my finances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So fast forward, we worked on the house, got it ready for the market, et cetera. Took about 4 months all told, and I got them to a great estate attorney who could put together a power of attorney for them. I got them, I made sure that the title company had a copy of the proper trust. I did all of the things that you normally do. And in the meantime, the father really slipped badly and went into assisted care and for memory issues and did not remember that he had agreed to have his son be the power of attorney. And they had not gotten a letter at the time of achieving the power of attorney that said that he was fully compos mentis to sign the document.
Oh, goodness.
So we went through a big rigmarole. It finally worked out. It was all fine. The father remembered that his son was his son and talked to the title company and said, "Indeed, I in a moment when I was lucid, I did do this," which was a miracle, by the way.
Right. Yes.
And we were able to close the deal. But people don't realize these sorts of things happen because in real estate, you're not just dealing, it's not like selling a can of Coke to somebody. It's
Right.
like you're selling a huge thing that takes a long time. There's permutations, there are other people involved, there are other states involved, there are all kinds of regulations, laws, what have you. And we as realtors have to navigate through all of that stuff, and no one knows about it because we try to make it look easy, we try to make it look seamless, we try to make
Yep.
sure that nobody has any pain points during any part of the process, and the thanks we get for it are things like the NAR DOJ lawsuits
Yes. Correct.
and the challenging of our profession by
Yes.
large organizations like Zillow, Trulia, um, Purple Bricks, whatever out
Yeah.
there, because they think we're just like Vanna White and we go like that and the house gets sold.
Yeah. Well, and
So
I think the general populace too pictures real estate agents as just like the I'm selling my house to buy a new one. And that's the only scenario. Like I want to upgrade my house or I want to downgrade my whatever. That's what they know. So that's what they think that's all we do. And I
right.
think that it's important always to share the stories that we have of people that are not just that simple of a thing so that they can see that it's really not just their experiences that we experience as well.
Correct. And it's a lot of time. I mean, I think a couple of days ago I was talking with this lovely woman named Shireen who was from Hawaii, and we were talking about the differences in selling a piece of property in Hawaii and the things you have to look out for when you're selling in a tropical environment where houses are weather beaten to hell, um, and the different regulations that are involved, because pretty much every state has different ways of dealing with pretty much everything, and as realtors we have to learn these things.
Right.
The gentleman from Sioux Falls was very interesting because South Dakota does real estate very differently than Minnesota, and he's right on the border there, and he does business in both states. In
Right.
Minnesota, an attorney closes the transaction. In Sioux Falls, South Dakota, just like here in California, the realtor does literally everything. How
Yeah.
is it in Michigan? How do you close your deals? Does an attorney get involved, or do you go all the
No,
way through
no.
with all the paperwork?
Yep, we go all the way through with all the paperwork and then title takes it over and handles their side and then we go
Hmm.
to close. So the only time there's ever really attorneys involved is if the home buyer or home seller wants one involved. And
Right.
they typically are reviewing the contracts more than they're actually involved in the depths of the transaction.
Got it. And in Michigan, how many pages long is your contract?
I think our listing contract now is about 9, I think, since the new regulations have come out in August. And I think the purchase agreements, and we have a lot because each board has their own. Um,
Hmm.
Mine, I think, is 12 for the purchase side, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But because we all belong to different boards, we can all use whichever documents we like the best. So this agent might have a 4-page document, and this agent might have a 24-page document, depending on which board they belong to and which documents they like to use.
Got it. Yeah, in our area, the standard contract itself is 16 pages.
Okay.
And generally speaking, all the documents initially associated with a purchase are around 27 pages.
Okay.
Because
So,
California
yeah,
never met anything they couldn't write a law about.
right.
So,
Sounds like yours are slightly longer than ours. Ours
yeah,
just increased in length when the new
right.
law went into place. I think my listing contract prior was 5 pages.
Hmm.
And then, you have your seller's disclosure and then your marketing contract and, the couple other little single
Hmm.
pagers that go along with it. But yeah, the basic contract was about 5 previously.
Okay. And when you are working in real estate, do you make a habit of working in social media and, trumpeting your successes and talking about the value of realtors every chance you possibly can?
I do. Most of it's through Instagram stories. Sometimes I'll throw reels in there and regular posts. I do
Hmm.
have a marketing system that is posting regularly, just like little informational tidbits and stuff like that, just to make sure that if I forget to post, there's something active out there. Um, but yeah, that was a very big change for me. I used to just be like family only. Here's what's happening in case you're not local, right? So getting in front of the camera and saying, hey, this is what's going on, and this is the house I'm touring, or whatever the case may be for the day,
Yeah.
was quite a change for me.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I come from my background. I before I became a realtor, I ran theater companies, and I'm a
Okay.
theater director, and so I'm very used to being on camera and being in front of people. I taught at different universities. I'm very to me, education is the most important thing in the entire world because an educated populace is a populace that can't be fooled.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, so for me, I've made it my mission in life basically to rehabilitate the perception of realtors in the public
Okay.
because our reputations have been sullied by this really profoundly, and
Yes.
the value of what it is we do has been damaged by people that are not even in our field. I mean, one of the things that's fascinating for me, in our area, we have a sewer lateral ordinance,
Okay.
which means that the sewer line needs to be free and clear of debris to where it meets with the city line and also with no breaks in it, what have you. It's a very expensive ordinance because there's some houses that have a sewer line that meets with the city line 300 yards from their house, which is incredibly expensive.
Hmm.
And when they were creating that legislation, they did not talk to one single realtor. They did not talk to one single plumber. They had absolutely no idea of what the ramifications of that would be on transactions. But during the 2008 downturn, um, there were people that lost their houses because of sewer lines, believe it or not. It was a point of
Yes, I
sale
believe that.
ordinance, and you'd have an elderly lady who couldn't afford to do her sewer line, and you'd have a buyer that was using a VA or an FHA loan who didn't have any money to put into a sewer line, and they wouldn't
Mhm.
be able to close the deal. And the way the legislation was written, banks were exempted from having to do the sewer line. Okay. So you
Yes.
wonder who was the one that lobbied for that. So the point being that people don't, the unintended consequences of legislating things without actually communicating with people that are involved in the field is really horrific.
Yes,
Uh, so, and you as somebody who runs a heating and plumbing, you know exactly what I'm talking about
I
there.
do. I do.
Um,
I'm sitting here thinking like, why and how, and please ask the
well,
professionals.
the biggest thing around it was that when somebody transacts at this point, you can kick the can down the road. You can buy an extension of 6 months, and then you would also put a $4,500 deposit that goes to East Bay Mud, which is the sewer department here, and they are not required to give you the interest on that money.
Oh my gosh.
So if you sort of tabulate in your head how many transactions occur and how much money is going into them that is a deposit, it's
Hmm.
refundable once the line is certified. But how many people are not able to get that line certified? How many people don't get around to it in time? What have you? You can see it's an enormous windfall for a private company that is associated with the government. So
Hmm.
just wanting to talk about that
Yeah.
a little bit.
Wonder who helped write that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very important to be involved in your association, very important to be up on the things that people are bringing to the table in your city councils, what have you,
Yep.
because they have real life consequences for real people that are transacting real estate and their pocketbooks. Um, you also mentioned that you are really involved with the Lions Club, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about that.
So my husband is actually a member of the Lions Club, but I have been a donator to the Lions Club for, I mean, years and years and years. Actually, when I was in high school, we were recipients of gifts from the Lions Club after my dad had been injured. So they kind of have like a special place in my heart, and they're right here local in my community. Um, and they have reached a point in their in their lifespan here that their building has become a liability instead of an asset to them. So part of their work, they take in a ton of donations. Well, they're only allowed to spend so much of those donations on the building itself. And
Right.
because that hasn't been happening for the 40 years or so that that building has been in existence, 50 years maybe, it's at a point where it needs some repairs that they are not able to do. So they've decided to sell the building. But because they're a nonprofit, there are rules about them selling the building. They had to assign a signer to sell it. They have a church that actually wants to buy it, but they wanted to buy it as a lease option or a land contract. And our assessor made sure I didn't want them to do that because it was not in their best interest. And that's one of the things that I think is important for nonprofits is to make sure you hire a professional to be your advocate. Because your nature as a nonprofit, especially as a generous giving one, is to accommodate whatever comes your way. So they were like, well, it's a church and this, that, and the other thing. They wanted to do nice things for the church and be kind and giving, but it's not in their best interest to do
Right.
so. So they wanted to kind of accept one of those situations. And I was like, no, it's not in your best interest. Well, then after they went and talked to the assessor, they found out had they accepted one of those, they would have lost their nonprofit status on that property.
Oh my Lord.
So it was accidental that I saved them from that because I didn't know that thing about the nonprofits. So now I'm attempting to learn more about the nonprofits, but I was looking out for what was best for them because in a lease option, especially, yes, you might be getting a good price today for that property, but in 2 years when they take that option up, your property could be worth significantly more and you're losing out on all of that because you've agreed to that. So that was my big thing for them is like, no, if it was 6 months, maybe, but 2 years,
Mhm.
no way. Like that is not in your best interest. So I think that's really important. And especially as a nonprofit, because that's your lifeblood is to give, right? Like that's what you are here for. So you want to be accommodating to that. So I want to encourage all nonprofits out there that if you have to sell a property, any property, whether it's a real estate property or it's other physical, personal type property, find somebody to advocate for you so that you're not losing out on those funds that you could be using for your nonprofit because you want to be generous in a different way.
That's really beautiful. And what that brings up for me is the fact that as realtors, we really serve our communities in so many ways. look what you have done with all this volunteerism. Look how different the community would be without your help.
Right.
It's kind of profound. I'm so excited to have met you, Tracy. You're a wonderful person and a terrific realtor and a great guest. And I just want to thank you so much for being here today on Realizations. Thanks, everybody. Tune in next week for a new show. Take good care. Bye, Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great meeting you. I hope you have
All
a great
right. It was fun, huh?
Yeah.
Take good care.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Realizations Podcast. I hope our conversation has shed light on the true essence of real estate and the people behind it. As we wrap up, I want to extend my gratitude to our listeners for their support and engagement. Your feedback drives the heart of this podcast, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Realizations Podcast and leaving a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and spread our message of positivity in the real estate industry. Until next time, remember to keep an open mind, embrace empathy, and always seek the good in every situation. I'm Andrea Gordon signing off from Realizations. See you next time.